Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where I'm right now joining you with what might be, the biggest query as of to date. I'm not even kidding you. And that is, do you have honey in your tea? Do you have tea in your tea? Sorry, do you have sugar in your tea? Or is that just something that you have in coffee, right? Because in coffee it seems normal, but in tea, to me, it seems so alien, so foreign, the mindset of having it in. I'm just like, what? Why? Now I'm trying it though, but the reason why I'm asking and the reason why I've actually consulted my friends about this, yeah, I know, it's sort of a big thing, is because I recently came into contact with the story of the British comedian Bob Mortimer, who apparently I'm gonna say again, because it's apparently genuinely true, that when he was younger he had 17 teaspoons of sugar in his coffee, and now he had to replace, and I'm saying now, but it was probably a few years ago, he had to replace his 4 front teeth at the top to just one big replacement that's just supposed to represent all the 4 teeth. It was kind of scary just to imagine that all of them have been broken down just because of all that sugar. I'm sure that the amount of honey I put into this cup isn't the same amount as, 17 teaspoons of sugar, but still, leave a comment down below. What do you think about in tea? Do you think that's good? Do you think it's normal? I never had it, never tried it before. It does certainly put a sweet sort of twist to it all. Anyway, mates, today we are sort of semi-back, but we're back enough! Yeah, because I've been sick for a couple of days, but we're back into discussing imagination. Isn't it just the best? The imagination of us all, the child within us. The imagination that will bring forth and spur forth creativity and an expression, offset impression, the imagination in everything. That's the basis of creativity. Now, isn't it? And we've been talking about it at work because it is important. It is vastly important to talk about your career choices when it comes to imagination, because your imagination is the only thing that limits you in this world now, isn't it? We've also talked about how to increase and enhance your performance with the help of imagination. But that's all good and dandy. That's all fine and dandy. But that's not everything you have to do now, isn't it? Now you have to split your work and your social life as well. Yeah, you have to. Otherwise you will just be stressed out. And last time we talked about imagination and its importance that you're actually applying it to your free time as well. But today we will be focusing on some very concrete things that you can do in order to bolster and sort of channel your imagination in your free time. And I think it's important to mention, because when I've been discussing what will be the last videos, let's say, the previous video, with other people, sort of this imagination on the general spectrum in your free time, most people just tend to be like, but how do I actually channel that? How do I get into the mindset of actually doing that? How do I actually get my imagination out there? And that is what I am going to suggest to you today. And these are going to be general enough approaches so that you can probably afford it. You can probably do it to some extent, to some extent people will be able to do it better than others. Probably, maybe. It's a question about potential there. But the most important thing is that you will be able to channel your imagination, bolster your creativity, and find new ways of how to interact, right? So that's the goal today.
Oh, cut that.
Yeah, sorry about that. The first thing that we're gonna go into is a very artistic choice, right? And that is dancing. I know, some of you might be like, hold on, you're standing there in your pink sweater saying things like I should dance, and maybe the one I'm talking about, is a 45-year-old male sitting on the other side of the camera, on the other side of the computer screen right now that I'm talking to. And yes, even to you, I'm saying to the man's man, dance. It's a good way of expressing yourself in movement. Some people are real, I was gonna say meathead, but it's obviously the opposite. Some people are, they learn by studying. People like me, I generally like to sit down with a good book and read what I'm supposed to do. But there are so many people who do not, get off of their imagination in that sense. What they need is to actually move. They need to exercise. They need to learn by doing. They need to express by doing. And dance is one of those things. It's free. because you can dance without no music if you want to. So it's absolutely free. Everybody can apply it. Everybody can dance, no matter what you say, right? I mean, it's enough that you do this and you can dance, isn't it? Woohoo! And you can just replicate that if you want to. If you say that I cannot dance, I cannot do a single move, just do this. You know, I can give you this, you can rip this one right off, and then you can build on that, try to maybe, throw one up a bit higher, and throw the other one up a bit higher, and then woohoo, go take a step to the right and take a step to the left. And that way you actually bolster your imagination. It might not seem like it, right? But you actually do. Because when you express yourself in dancing, for instance, you actually move your body. You move into a new space, back and forth all of the time. You're always constantly moving. You're on the move. You're thinking, how can I actually move to the music? And when you get comfortable with that at a certain level, you will start doing things that are not directly in connection with the music, but over the course of the entire song, it will be connected to an overarching theme of the music. Isn't it incredible the amount of insight that you can have? Now, I'm not a professional dancer by no means, right? But I just thought that this is one of these things that I've tried to a certain extent, to a lesser extent, and the other things I will suggest. But I've heard people who are doing this, and they say that it helps with their imagination, their creativity, the way they see. This is gonna sound so far-fetched, but the way they see the world, the way they operate, because just by adding these different spectrums of moving to the right, moving to the left, back and forth, these things are just moving in and out of spaces, doing different things in these spaces to the connection of music yet again. It's incredible the amount of imagination and creativity you can bolster, and then apply that mindset to something else. So that's one way of channeling it. Another way is drawing. It's also sort of a very cheap way of going about it, because necessarily everything you really need is a block of some sort. Now I have a graph here that's maybe isn't the most interesting thing, and a pen. And this can cost you a sum of $1, maybe, right? You can probably get it for cheaper than that, but $1, and you can be on your way. You can be drawing to your heart's content. You can bolster out. You can just pour out everything that you've kept within you. What is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Draw it. What is the most vengeful and hateful and disgusting thing you've ever seen? Draw it. And by drawing, you will also find new ways of drawing, and by finding new ways of drawing, really expressing that new way, you will inevitably be working with a lot of creativity, and your mindset will be applied to that way of being like, hey, you know what? I can create something. And creating something is creativity. And creativity, as I would argue, based on this project, stems from your imagination. You need to imagine it if you're going to create it, right? So drawing is yet another perfect example of how you can channel that imagination and actually make it into something tangible. Now, I hear what you might be saying. But I'm more of a logical person. I'm not really that abstract in my thought process, but I want to be. Is there any way that I can do this in a cheap manner? At home? Maybe with someone else. Maybe I don't just want to sit by myself and draw. Maybe I don't just want to stand by myself and dance. No, what you can do is play chess. Sorry again. What you can do is that you can play chess. And I know that many of you will be like, oh yeah, chess, that's a creative sport. That's a lot to do with imagination. But yes, it actually does. Because in chess, it is put up and it's set up in such a way that it's up to you and skill on how you're going to solve a problem. Basically, every time that you face an opponent, the opponent is going to put up a problem in front of you. This is how I can view it. And based on the resources that you have at your disposal, how will I deal with this problem? And the problem can look very varied from very different scenarios and different occasions, because there can be different openings, there can be different endings, there can be a lot of different mid-games. Maybe you do a blunder, maybe the opponent does a blunder, and you always need to be thinking in steps. And when you think in steps, you're imagining it, you're visualizing it in front of you, what you're going to do, and then you can apply that step-by-step thought process to other things in your life if you so do want to. So that bolsters the imaginative what should we say, the stretch of how far into steps that you can think. You will increase the amount of steps that you will be able to think based on just playing this game. And since you will be presented with, hopefully and most likely, very different scenarios almost each and every time, even if you play against the same opponents, you will be able to adapt and you will be able to overcome this sort of, I'm stuck in one mindset, I'm only doing this. No, but when you do one thing, it's not bad to have a plan, but if you do try to execute a game plan and that turns out to, oh, they made a move that made my plan not really work, then how am I going to solve it? There are different ways of going about this. How will I get back to the original plan? How will I adapt to make this new plan work that to make this scenario work? Or even better, maybe you say this person took one of my pieces out, but that's maybe part of the plan. The plan is going that far, and if they take something out, there's another opportunity open for you. But you need to see that, you need to utilize your resources, yet again, applying your logical side of your brain, but simultaneously implementing this sort of imaginative and very abstract way, but still connecting it to the logical part. Because yes, there is a finite amount of moves that probably can be made in every scenario, and there is a finite amount of moves if you watch chess overall, more so than if you compare it to dancing and drawing, I would argue, right? Just because it's a physical and tangible thing in comparison to something that's just based on your imagination. But still, it's a very good approach if you want to transcend that logical to abstract thinking. These are tangible pieces, but this is the abstract way I can view them and create new patterns and thereby winning. It's a good way of channeling your imagination and trying to work on your focus at the same time, which is necessary as well, because if you are to channel your imagination, you probably need some form of focus in order to actually structure what is coming out on the other side. So your abstract mind, you need to structure that in a way so that it will be a, what you would say, this is how I like to view it anyway, a structured abstract. No, but for instance, if you, I can't even explain it, right? But you want to try to structure the abstract that comes out. So you don't want to have the different dots that don't make any sense. You want to be able to apply your logical thinking to those dots and make something. And that's why I would argue that drawing is so very good, because you throw something out that's based purely on your imagination, and then you try to make sense of what you just threw out, and that you will draw around that sort of thing. Now, the last thing that I will mention is probably something that all of you thought I was going to mention in the beginning and as the first one, and that is singing / and or playing music, sort of playing an instrument. Because an instrument, at least from my view, right, I can only speak from my own experience, and context is important. Playing an instrument or singing is sort of an expression of what you feel. It's an expression of an emotion, maybe a negative emotion that you carried over from work home, or a very negative emotion that you have from home that you don't want to bring with you to work. You can express this, you can make it go out of your system, right, through dealing with it through music. And whilst dealing with your own emotions through music, you need to be very imaginative. And the best part about playing an instrument, drawing, to some extent playing chess and dancing, when it comes to that you need to make sense of something, is that you are probably the only person in the world who can do that. You're probably one of the only people in the world who can deal with your own emotions in a efficient way. So that means that no matter what you do, it won't become wrong. It will always be right. And then it's just a matter of how right you think that is. And then training, repetition, coming into sort of a pattern, forming a habit of doing this and expressing your imagination and your creativity. Because when it comes to playing music, there are so many things you can learn. Even if you, beyond reason, right, were to master an instrument, for most of us, right? If you were to absolutely master an instrument, so that there were nothing else that you can learn. Yet again, there's an arguable theoretical point that you might hit. I myself would say that there probably isn't one, because there's always room to create when you have an instrument, especially something as diversified as a piano or a guitar, even a drum set, right? But if you feel that you're limited and that you feel that it sort of hit that that note. I can't get it any further. Then you can just move on to another instrument. You can start singing, and simultaneously, if you start singing, you can just move on to an instrument and do the two things simultaneously if you think that you master both. So it's such a great and endless way of doing it. Now, the only problem is that playing an instrument sort of implies that it will be a cost. It will be a sunk cost in the amount of money that you need to spend to actually get an instrument. Therefore, I would argue to do it in sort of this manner if you think about it. So dancing is absolutely free. Singing is also absolutely free. Drawing is probably the third one. But that sort of ties with chess, because both chess and drawing can be made very cheap and ridiculously expensive, right? So it's all about how much money you want to spend on channeling your imagination. How much you actually want to give it, so to say, in order to give it a try. And then the last one is probably an instrument. Now, that was about a suggestion of how you can channel your own imagination in order to bolster your own creativity so that you can make an expression of the impression that you have. How you can deal with different emotions at home and not bring them to work. And simultaneously, how you can bring with feelings at work at home so that it doesn't have to affect your personal life anymore. These are all great ways. I imagine there are even more ways that I don't really know that much about, or maybe I do and I just have forgotten them in this instance. But I would argue that those 4 or 5, depending on how you see singing and playing an instrument, choices or solutions, let's say, of how channeling your imagination is something that if you don't do any of them, you should pick up and try one of them at least. Because for me, I'm trying to do all of them. They've had such a monumental increase in the amount of imagination and expression that I would myself argue that I have. And it also monumentally helped me to deal with a lot of emotions, because sometimes it is just hard to talk. I know, I'm one of the people who talk all of the bloody time, like 10 to 20 minutes a day in front of a camera and then uploading it to YouTube. Obviously, I'm not that afraid of what I'm saying getting out there. That's not the problem. The problem is not being afraid of what you put out there. Sometimes the problem is that you can't simply express everything in words. And there's where these channels, so to say, these channels of imagination gets really handy, because you can deal with different emotions and different ways of creating in different mediums and in different channels. So, to end this entire video that was a bit more unstructured due to coughing than I would have liked it to be, I would just end with saying this: please pick up at least one channel in order to, channel your imagination. And just give it a fair old try. You don't have to give it like a year that I've done with this, but you might as well try it for a month, 30 days. That's all it takes for the human to make a habit of something, isn't it? Don't quote me on that, but I would imagine it's so, or at least it's sort of similar or close to that. So that was everything I had to say for today, mates. I will probably be joining up with trying to combine a couple of things tomorrow. So that's going to be interesting and funny for everyone. So have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow with that. Bye.